Before I begin, please subscribe. Not because this is entertaining, but because stories like mine are too often buried, and someone out there needs to hear this before it's too late. My name is Claire. I'm 34 years old, born and raised in the Midwest, and this is the story of the night I waited alone in my bridal dress and heard a cry that wasn't meant for me. I still remember how heavy the dress felt, not because of the fabric, but because of the promises stitched into it. Ivory satin hugged my waist, the lace sleeves trembling every time my hands shook. The room smelled like roses and hairspray, the kind of scent that's supposed to mark the happiest day of your life. I was sitting on the edge of the bed in the honeymoon suite, posture straight, feet bare on the carpet, veil folded carefully beside me like something fragile that might shatter if I touched it again. The clock on the wall said 11:47 p.m. My husband wasn't there. Earlier that evening, everyone told me not to worry. Grooms get pulled away, my maid of honor laughed. Family stuff, his brother said. Last-minute surprises, the wedding planner whispered with a wink. I smiled, I nodded. I believed them, because I trusted him, because for 3 years I had built my life around that trust. His name was Evan. We met when I was 30 at a charity fundraiser downtown. He wore a navy suit that didn't quite fit his shoulders, and he spilled red wine on my shoes within 5 minutes of saying hello. He apologized so sincerely, so awkwardly, that I laughed instead of getting angry. By the end of the night, he had my number and my heart halfway claimed. Evan was thoughtful, predictable in a comforting way, the kind of man who remembered your coffee order and called his mother every Sunday. He worked in corporate finance, long hours, clean hands, steady paycheck, the kind of man my friends approved of, the kind of man my father shook hands with a little too firmly, the kind of man you marry because he feels safe. So when he kissed my forehead after the reception and said, "I'll be right back, Claire. I just need to take care of something," I didn't question it. I sat there alone, listening to the distant hum of elevators, the muffled laughter drifting up from the hotel bar below. I replayed the ceremony in my head, his vows, my vows, the way his hands trembled when he slid the ring onto my finger. I told myself he was nervous. I told myself this was normal. I told myself love required patience. At 11:58 p.m., I texted him, "Everything okay?" No reply. Midnight arrived quietly. No fireworks, no romance. Just the soft click of the minute hand and the sudden awareness of how silent the room had become. That's when I heard it. At first, it was faint. So faint, I thought it was the air conditioning. A sound, stretched thing, like someone trying not to be heard. Then it came again. A cry. Not loud, not dramatic, but raw. It didn't come from the hallway. It didn't come from outside. It came from somewhere inside the hotel. I stood up so fast the chair scraped the floor. My heart slammed against my ribs, confusion blooming into something colder. I pressed my ear against the door, breath shallow, listening. Another sound followed, a woman's voice. Not words, just pain. It wasn't the sound of joy. It wasn't laughter. It wasn't celebration. It was fear. I pulled the door open and stepped into the hallway, still in my wedding dress, still barefoot. The carpet felt rough under my feet. The corridor lights buzzed softly, casting everything in a yellow glow that made the hotel feel less luxurious and more like a maze. The sound came again, clearer this time. Down the hall, past the ice machine, near the service elevators. Every instinct told me to stop. Every part of me that had survived 34 years of being careful screamed that this was none of my business. But another part of me, the part that had just married a man who vanished on our wedding night, kept walking. Each step felt louder than the last. The dress brushed against my legs, whispering secrets I wasn't ready to hear. I turned the corner slowly, heart pounding so hard I was sure someone could hear it. And then I saw him, Evan, my husband. He was standing near the service elevator, his back half turned toward me, jacket off, sleeves rolled up. His hair was disheveled, nothing like the man who stood at the altar hours earlier. One hand was clenched into a fist, and in front of him was a woman. She was younger than me, mid-20s maybe. Her mascara had run down her cheeks in dark streaks, her dress wrinkled, one strap slipping off her shoulder. She was crying openly now, shoulders shaking, hands pressed to her mouth like she was trying to keep herself from breaking apart entirely. I froze. This wasn't an embrace. This wasn't comfort. This was confrontation. "What did you think would happen?" Evan hissed, his voice low and sharp, nothing like the man I knew. "You promised you wouldn't do this tonight." The woman shook her head, tears falling faster. "I didn't know you'd be here. I didn't know you'd actually go through with it." Go through with it. The words hit me harder than any scream. My breath caught in my throat. My fingers tightened around the fabric of my dress, knuckles burning. I wanted to step forward, to demand answers, to remind him who I was, but my body refused to move, because in that moment I realized something terrifying. That cry I heard at midnight, it wasn't for help, it was heartbreak. And it wasn't meant for me. The woman looked up then, her eyes finding mine across the hallway. For a split second, everything stopped. Her face went pale, lips parting as if she wanted to warn me, apologize, or confess all at once. Evan turned slowly. When his eyes met mine, the color drained from his face. "Claire," he said, and just like that, the man I married disappeared. What stood in front of me was a stranger holding secrets heavy enough to crush a wedding dress, a future, and everything I thought I knew about love. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood there, barefoot, married, and completely alone, realizing that the worst part wasn't that he left me waiting. It was that I had no idea who I had been waiting for. For a long moment, none of us moved. The hallway felt too narrow for the truth standing inside it. The buzzing lights overhead grew louder in my ears, and the smell of industrial cleaner mixed with the faint perfume of the woman in front of me. My wedding ring felt suddenly tight, like it was cutting off circulation. "Claire," Evan said again, softer this time, like saying my name gently could rewind the last 30 seconds. "This isn't what it looks like." I almost laughed, because that sentence is universal. It sounds the same in every betrayal. I looked at her instead of him. She couldn't meet my eyes anymore. Her shoulders slumped, like she had been carrying something far too heavy for far too long. "What is her name?" I asked. My voice didn't sound like mine. It was calm, steady, terrifyingly controlled. Evan swallowed. "That's not important right now." The woman flinched. I turned back to him. "It's important to me." He hesitated, and that hesitation told me everything. "Lena," she said quietly, answering for him. "My name is Lena." Her voice cracked on the last syllable, like she expected punishment for speaking. I nodded slowly, committing her face to memory. The curve of her eyebrows, the trembling of her hands, the way she stood half-turned toward the elevator as if escape was always an option. "How long?" I asked. Evan exhaled sharply, rubbing his temples. "Claire, please, not here, not tonight." "Then when? Our first anniversary? Or should I wait until you leave me pregnant and confused like her?" Lena sucked in a sharp breath. Evan's head snapped toward her. "I told you not to say anything." She laughed them, a broken sound, wet with tears. "You told me a lot of things." My stomach twisted. I felt like I was standing at the edge of a cliff, staring down at years of my life collapsing into a single horrifying shape. "How long?" I repeated, slower now. Evan closed his eyes. 8 months. 8 months. I did the math without meaning to. 8 months ago, he brought me flowers on a random Tuesday. 8 months ago, he started working late more often. 8 months ago, he said stress was getting to him, that he needed my support. 8 months ago, I trusted him. I leaned against the wall, suddenly lightheaded. The lace sleeve brushed the cool paint, grounding me just enough to stay upright. "She didn't know about you at first," Evan said quickly, like he was presenting evidence in his own defense. "I was going to end it. I tried to end it." Lena looked up at him, eyes burning. "You proposed to her after you met me." Silence crashed down between us. I stared at him. "You proposed to me while you were with her?" His jaw tightened. It was complicated. "No, it was deliberate." I turned to Lena instead. "Did you know he was engaged?" She nodded slowly. "Not at first. He said he was single, that he'd been hurt before, that he didn't trust easily." Evan took a step toward me. "Claire, I love you." The words landed wrong. Too late. Too empty. "You don't even know what love is," I said, "because love doesn't hide and it doesn't lie." Lena wiped her face with the back of her hand. "He told me tonight was the night he'd finally choose." I felt something inside me break open. "Choose?" I whispered. "Between us?" Evan didn't answer. That was his answer. I straightened, every nerve in my body buzzing. "So let me guess, you married me because it was easier, because I fit into your life, because I was safe." His eyes flickered with guilt. "And you kept her," I continued, voice rising now, "because she made you feel wanted, because she didn't expect anything real." "That's not fair," he snapped. Lena laughed again, bitter this time. "Neither is lying to two women." I looked at her then, really looked at her. She wasn't smug, she wasn't cruel, she was devastated, used. "You heard me crying," she said softly to me. "I didn't mean for you to. I realized I was never going to win." Something shifted in me. The anger that had been aimed at her dissolved, redirecting itself where it belonged, at Evan. "You left me alone in my wedding dress," I said, my voice shaking now despite my efforts, "to break another woman's heart." "I didn't know how to end it," he said. "So you started something worse," I replied. The elevator dinged behind Lena, doors sliding open. She looked at it, then back at me, uncertainty written all over her face. "I'm sorry," she said. "I never wanted to hurt you." I believed her. Evan reached for my arm. "Claire, please, let's go back to the room. We can talk. We can fix this." I pulled away from his touch like it burned. "There is nothing to fix," I said. "You made your choice." His face twisted. "So that's it? You're just walking away?" I looked down at my dress, the symbol of a future that no longer existed. "I'm not walking away," I said. "I'm standing still. You're the one who's been running." I turned to Lena. "Go." She hesitated. Then she stepped into the elevator. Just before the doors closed, she met my eyes one last time. "Don't let him convince you this was your fault," she said. Then she was gone. The elevator doors slid shut with a soft finality that echoed in my chest. Evan and I were alone, married, broken, strangers. "I can explain everything," he said. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw nothing I recognized. "No," I said quietly. "You can live with it." I turned and walked back down the hallway, the train of my dress dragging behind me like the ghost of a life I almost had. Behind me, Evan called my name. I didn't turn around. Because some cries you hear at midnight change you forever. And I was done listening. I didn't go back to the honeymoon suite. I walked past it, past the door where my overnight bag waited, past the bed that had never been slept in, past the future that ended before it could begin. The elevator ride down felt endless. Every mirror reflected a woman I barely recognized. Hair pinned perfectly, makeup intact, eyes hollow. A bride with nowhere to go. When the doors opened in the lobby, a few people stared. A night clerk straightened in his chair, confusion flickering across his face. Somewhere near the bar, a couple laughed too loudly. Life continued. I stepped outside into the cold night air, the city breathing around me like nothing had happened. My phone buzzed in my hand. Evan. I didn't answer. I called my sister instead. She picked up on the second ring. Claire, why are you calling so late? I need you, I said. That was all it took. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in the passenger seat of her car, my dress stuffed awkwardly around me, veil tossed in the back. She didn't ask questions at first. She just drove, jaw clenched, eyes wet. When we finally stopped at her apartment, the dam broke. I told her everything. The hallway, the woman, the cry. She listened in silence, then wrapped her arms around me so tightly I finally let myself cry. Not delicate tears, the kind that come from your gut, that leave you gasping and exhausted. He married you knowing this, she said when I finished. Her voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. That's unforgivable. I slept on her couch that night, in my wedding dress, because I didn't have the energy to take it off. The next morning, the reality settled in. Phones buzzed, messages piled up. Family members asked where the photos were. I turned my phone off. For 3 days, I existed in a fog. I drank water because my sister handed it to me. I ate because she sat beside me until I did. Every few hours, I caught myself touching my ring, like it might disappear if I stopped checking. On the 4th day, Evan showed up. He stood outside my sister's door, eyes bloodshot, suit wrinkled, confidence stripped away. He needs to talk to her, he said. My sister crossed her arms. You need to leave. Please, he said. I made a mistake. I walked into the doorway then. A mistake? I repeated. His eyes lit up when he saw me. Claire, thank God, I've been trying to reach you. I know, I said. He took a step closer. I didn't move. I ended it, he said quickly. I told her it was over. I chose you. I laughed. I couldn't help it. You didn't choose me. You chose the version of yourself that looks better in public. That's not fair. It's accurate. He ran a hand through his hair. We can still have the life we planned. Counseling, a fresh start. I looked at him, truly looked, and realized how small he seemed now. You don't want a wife, I said. You want a witness, someone to stand beside you and pretend you're a good man. His face hardened. So you're just throwing everything away? You threw it away, I said. I'm just not picking it up. He stared at me for a long moment. Then his voice dropped. You'll regret this. Something inside me snapped into place. No, I said. You will. I closed the door. The divorce process began quietly. No dramatic courtroom scenes, just paperwork, emails, lawyers who spoke in calm, professional tones while dismantling what remained of my marriage. Then, 2 weeks later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Claire? A soft voice said. It was Lena. My chest tightened. How did you get this number? I asked Evan's assistant, she said. I'm sorry, I needed to talk to you. I hesitated, then said, okay. We met at a coffee shop halfway between our apartments. She looked different, tired, smaller. I'm not calling to cause problems, she said quickly. I just found out something you deserve to know. My stomach dropped. What? She wrapped her hands around her cup, knuckles white. I'm pregnant. The word echoed.
pregnant. I didn't know until after the wedding, she continued. When I told him, he accused me of lying, said I was trying to trap him. I felt sick. And then, she said, voice trembling, he asked me not to tell you, ever. I sat back, heart pounding. He didn't just cheat, I said slowly. He planned to erase you. She nodded. And the baby. A long silence stretched between us. Finally, she looked at me. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I couldn't carry this alone. I reached across the table and took her hand. You're not alone, I said. In that moment, something shifted again. This story wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about survival, and it was far from over. After that coffee, my life split into before and after. Before, I believed closure came from distance. After, I understood it sometimes comes from truth. Lena and I didn't become friends overnight. We were two women bound by the same lie, still bleeding from different wounds. But we talked. Slowly, carefully, sometimes angrily, sometimes through tears. She told me how they met, a conference in Chicago, a late drink at the hotel bar, a man who said all the right things because he'd practiced them on someone else. I told her about the proposal, the planning, the way Evan cried when I said yes. He cried with me too, she said once. That hurt more than I expected. The divorce moved faster than I thought it would. No kids, no shared property, just a man eager to escape consequences and a woman who refused to protect his image. I kept my maiden name. Evan tried to contact me twice more, once through a long email filled with apologies that centered himself, once through a voicemail where his anger finally leaked through. You're destroying my life, he said. I deleted both. Lena decided to keep the baby. Not out of revenge, not out of hope he'd change, out of resolve. I won't let him erase us, she said. I admired her strength, even when she didn't see it herself. One afternoon, months later, I ran into Evan at the grocery store. He looked thinner, older. Claire, he said. I nodded politely. Evan, I hear you're still talking to her. I am. His jaw tightened. She's lying to you. I don't care, I said. The truth isn't yours to control anymore. He scoffed. You think you're better than me? No, I said. I think I'm free. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, the same apartment I once planned to share with him. I lit a candle. I took off my ring for the last time. I didn't cry, because grief changes shape. Sometimes it leaves quietly. Months passed. Life rebuilt itself in small, unremarkable ways. Morning walks, new routines, new boundaries. I learned how to sit with silence without filling it with excuses. Lena went into labor on a rainy Tuesday. I was there. I held her hand. I counted her breaths. I watched as something honest entered the world, unburdened by lies. A baby girl. When Lena looked at me and asked, "Will you be her godmother?" I said yes without hesitation. Evan wasn't there. He sent a text. That told me everything. The last time I saw Lena cry was the day she realized she didn't need him. The last time I cried over Evan was the day I realized I never had him. Sometimes people ask me if I regret walking away that night, standing alone in my bridal dress. Hearing a cry that wasn't meant for me? I don't. Because that cry saved me. It showed me the truth before it cost me more than a broken heart. If you're watching this and something feels off in your life, listen. The quiet truths are the ones that change everything. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away before the silence becomes your prison. People think the hardest part is the moment you find out. It isn't. The hardest part is the quiet afterward, when there's no more shock to protect you and you have to learn how to live inside the truth. After Lena's baby was born, my world slowed down. Not in a bad way, in an honest way. The kind of slow where you finally hear your own thoughts again. I went back to work. Same office, same desk, different woman. Colleagues avoided my eyes at first. Word had spread, of course, the canceled honeymoon, the sudden divorce. People love a mystery as long as they don't have to feel it. One afternoon, a coworker leaned over and whispered, "I don't know how you survived that." I didn't answer right away, because survival isn't loud. It's choosing to get out of bed. It's choosing not to reply to the message you shouldn't read again. It's choosing yourself when no one is watching. Evan faded from my daily life, but he didn't disappear completely. Mutual friends stopped inviting us to the same events. Some drifted away entirely. I let them. Anyone who needed me to stay quiet to remain comfortable was never really on my side. Lena struggled in ways I couldn't fix. Single motherhood is heavy. Some nights she called me just to cry. Some nights she didn't call at all, and I worried anyway. Watching her hold her daughter rewired something in me. That baby was living proof that truth survives lies. One evening, while rocking the baby to sleep, Lena said softly, "Do you ever wonder if it was all a lesson?" I thought about that. "No," I said. "I think it was a warning." She nodded. Dating came later, much later. The first man I went out with spilled his drink on the table and apologized 5 times. My chest tightened for a second, a ghost of the past flickering. Then he laughed at himself. No manipulation, no performance. Just human. I realized then how low my standards had been without me noticing. I didn't fall in love right away. I didn't need to. Healing taught me something better.
Than romance. Discernment. 1 year after the wedding that wasn't, I took the dress out of the closet. I didn't burn it. I didn't destroy it. I donated it. Not because it didn't hurt, but because it didn't own me anymore. The woman who wore it believed love meant endurance. The woman who gave it away knew love starts with honesty. Sometimes, late at night, I still think about that hallway, the yellow lights, the cry, the moment my life split open. I don't relive it with pain anymore. I relive it with clarity. Because that night didn't ruin me, it redirected me. And if you're listening to this, if something in your chest feels tight right now, don't ignore it. Your instincts are older than your excuses. Trust them. One more part remains. It's been 2 years now. 2 years since I waited alone in my bridal dress. 2 years since I heard a cry that cracked my life open. People ask me if I'm healed. I don't think healing is a finish line. I think it's a posture. I stand differently now. I ask better questions. I listen when answers feel rehearsed. I walk away sooner. Evan remarried. I heard it through someone else, the way you hear about strangers. Small wedding, quiet ceremony, a woman who looks a lot like the version of me he thought he could control. I felt nothing. No anger, no jealousy, no sadness, just relief. Because the life I almost had would have slowly erased me. Lena's daughter took her first steps last month. She walked straight toward me, arms out, fearless. I laughed and cried at the same time, realizing something profound. That child exists because the truth refused to stay buried. Sometimes Lena asks if I ever want children. Maybe, I tell her, but only in a life built on truth. And I mean it. I live alone now, not lonely, intentional. My apartment is quiet in the best way, no lies echoing off the walls, no tension hiding behind polite smiles, just peace, earned the hard way. I still believe in love,
but not the kind that demands silence, not the kind that survives by shrinking you. I believe in the kind of love that stands in the light, even when it's uncomfortable. If you're listening to this, if something in your life feels off, if you're explaining away behaviors you wouldn't accept from a stranger, if you're waiting in emotional rooms alone, telling yourself patience is love, listen to me. Love does not require you to disappear. That night, I thought the worst thing that happened was being left alone on my wedding night. I was wrong. The worst thing would have been staying blind. That cry wasn't meant for me, but it saved me anyway. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe. Not for me, for the version of you that deserves the truth. Because sometimes the moment that breaks your heart is the moment that gives you your life back.